Welcome to the Magpie Witch podcast. I am your host, Ashley, and today is going to be yet another super chaotic podcast for y'all because I have Merlin chilling back there, and I'm kind of letting him free. So I kind of dismantled my altar a little bit for this episode, and you'll see why. Excuse me. Yeah, so if he's like running around and playing with, rocks that I have set loose and all that fun stuff, I did it for you. I did it for this podcast. So before I get into it, I want to say, guys, I live in Tennessee and the Southeast has been absolutely hit hard by this hurricane. I am lucky that I live in Middle Tennessee. So we weren't really affected. We had heavy rain, but that was about it. Eastern Tennessee, Florida, the Carolinas, a couple other states I'm sure have absolutely been fucked by the hurricane. So if anyone's actually watching this podcast, I'm going to go ahead and leave a link down below in the info box or whatever for Samaritan's Purse, because that is currently the most trustworthy organization that you can donate to, where actually all of the money is going to be seen by the people who actually need it rather than donating to someplace else. Looking at you, Red Cross, that doesn't really give all their money to the people that actually need it. So I'm going to leave a link down below for Samaritan's Purse. If you can donate, that's amazing. If you can't donate, try to share the link if you can. But yes, with that somber start, let's get to it. So with this podcast, I kind of wanted to show you my favorite sort of tools, right? Like my grab bag of tools and rocks and divination stuff, and you'll kind of got a little jar of herbs right there. Right now, I am surrounded by all of my favorite witchy shit, and it feels like Christmas all over again. But I want to preface before I start showing you all a bunch of stuff, like a 3-year-old on show and tell at preschool. None of these things you have to have a successful practice. None of these things you have to be quote unquote powerful, to be effective at your practice, at your witchcraft or whatever. You don't need any of these things. Also, I have acquired these things through, with my studies in college, because I have a science degree, so I had access to rocks. I went on hikes. I had access to different outdoor things that would sometimes gift me with feathers. I was also in the Pacific Northwest, so some rocks are just a little bit more accessible than others. Granted, I'm not showing you all of those today, because I have so many rocks I got from hiking that showing you all those would be impossible. Also, I am going to be showing you some animal parts, and if that bothers you, I'm sorry, but I work with them. They were also, I personally did not go out and hurt these animals. I have either acquired them through antique stores, through people who were farming certain animals to feed other animals, in the case of my rabbit pelts that I'll show you in a little bit. So they were ethically sourced. They were taken care of properly in the case of the rabbit that I have over here. And I will show you another one here very soon, I promise. I know. I always start with all the qualifiers and the prefaces and all that shit, but whatever. Bear with me. Okay, the internet... Man. Good God. The internet requires me to preface with a bunch of this crap, okay? Or else I'm going to get shit on. Anyway, I do have one particular specimen that probably didn't come from a great background, but he's with me now, and I'll show you that in a second. So, I think, where do I want to start? Let's see here. Let's start with probably every witch's favorite thing, which is jars. At least right now. Maybe this podcast will be just for like the folk witch's favorite tool bag or something. I don't know. But jar spells and anything that has to do with jars. So now jars, you can do so many things with them. And there's one jar spell that I did not pull out for you guys, mainly because I just don't really want to show it on the internet too much. I'll explain in a minute why, but there's a couple jars I want to show y'all. This is... Marilyn, sweetie, do you need to do that? No. This is actually one of my first spell jars that I did And it's still going, it's ongoing, because, well, it's open. Side note, if you're going to do jar spells, and by the way, for this whole podcast, I'm going to be going through these tools and stuff, and then I'm also going to explain how I use them and different important things about them. So with the hope that you all, instead of me showing you just all the things that I think are cool, hopefully you can be like, oh, that's a cool idea. Let me, steal that and put that in my practice. Or, oh, that's a cool suggestion. I had no idea you could do that. So hopefully, hopefully this will be a learning thing for you. In between me making sure he doesn't destroy things, my cat. Any hoozle. This is a manifestation jar that I made about 2-3-ish years ago now. Marilyn, we have a lot of cords because my husband is a gamer and because I'm a gamer, and we have tech everywhere, and he just likes to bat the cords if you have a kitten, Anyway, manifestation jar. This was actually for us to move to Tennessee, as well as, getting land, finding a home, family, abundance, all that fun stuff, right? So this is actually an ongoing spell. I started this when I still lived in Washington, about a year out before I moved to Tennessee. And then from then on, it just kind of kept, and I felt bad about dismantling it because honestly, the spell's not done. I am in Tennessee. We got there really fast. I'm taken care of. We got a brand new RV that replaced our old shitty one. That broke down. That was a mess. But so things are going well, right? This is still going. This is still working. But yeah, side note, because it is still a working spell, kind of what I was alluding to earlier, the jar is still open. I don't have the lid on it. Now, if you're curious, how does Merlin deal with that? How does Merlin deal with my altar being out in an RV? How does Merlin deal with my feathers everywhere? Honestly, bitter apple spray. Bitter apple spray, and just making sure he's desensitized to it from day one. When we brought him home from the shelter, from day one, it was like, okay, we're not going to hide anything, because if you take the sacredness, it's like having something that a kid can't have. Suddenly they want it 10 times more. But if you just put it out there and treat it like it's not a big deal, the sacredness is taken away from it, and then suddenly he just doesn't care that it exists. So same with all my witchy stuff. I'm not saying that that's the same with every cat, okay? My grandma at one time upwards of 30 cats. I know my cats. Not every cat is well behaved. Merlin, for about a 6-month-old, I would say he's a goddamn angel, okay? But not every cat's that way. So just mine is. It worked out. I got lucky. Any hoozle. Back to the spells. So, a nice little manifestation jar. I love this. This is actually on my altar constantly, and it's been on my altar, like I said, for the past 3 years, and it's a working spell. So, I really like doing that. Some things I've thrown into it for manifestations. You're probably wondering what was wrapped around it. I have copper wire wrapped around it for conductivity. That was just kind of more of an experiment that recently happened. I have a lot of honey. I have, I mentioned sex magic in a podcast or two, I think. Yeah, we do that here. So I have those things, those fun liquids in there. Bay leaves, cryolite, I think it's cryolite, the bright, it says blue, I don't think you can see, oh, maybe you can, blue, kind of flaky, very light colored blue rock, very pretty, good for opening up the throat chakra, that's why it's in there. I also have some hibiscus. I like to do that to kind of open up sort of psychic channels and stuff. Hibiscus, that's a really good one that I personally like to use it for. And I have it in here specifically because I like to know when things are happening and when I'm going to, when those key decisions are going to pop up that are going to lead me down the path that I want to go. In this case, this is the path I want to go, which is land and all of the good stuff. The psychic stuff is in there to kind of help me know when those key decisions and key crossroads are coming up. So that's why I like that in there. What else do I got in there? I got coins. I got citrine. Citrine is also, okay. I am going to cut in with another thing before I leave jars, but we are going to go to rocks real fast. Citrine. This, and you might be like, whoa, that's a lot darker than some citrine I have seen. Yes, it is. Some citrine that you buy in stores is actually just dyed. It's either dyed with actual dyes or somehow they mess with it chemically, like heat treating it and stuff. That's how they get like the rainbow howlite or your peacock ore. Have you ever seen peacock ore? Oh no, that's a, well, I think peacock ore is heat treated. I believe so. If it's not, I'm sorry, but for being wrong. But I think peacock ore is heat treated. Anyway, this citrine was actually one of the rocks that I did find when I was in Washington on my hike. Now, one of my many hikes. I don't remember what hike I got it on, but I do know that I was on Mount Rainier. So, there's a whole bunch of trails if you ever been to Mount Rainier up in Washington State. But yeah, I found this when I was on a hike with my dad, and this citrine I use for damn near everything. So citrine is golden in color. It's a quartz. That is probably all of the actual geology that I could tell you about it. But beyond that, I can tell you it's amazing for manifesting. The golden color, it does correspond with your sacral chakra, which if we remember me mentioning, or if you've gotten into chakras on your own, your sacral chakra is really all where your like creative, manifesting type energies come from, right? So if you're a woman or if you're a person who has a womb, that is a portal where life comes from. All right. That's right where your sacral chakra is if you are a womb having person, it is right where your womb is in your bits. If you are a Venus having person, I'm trying to be inclusive. Okay. Then it's still your bits, okay? It's just you don't have a womb, and that's okay. But you still have your sacral chakra if you have male bits. Anyway, so citrine is really great for manifesting. Yes. Anyway, back to jar spells. So, the second jar spell that I have for y'all is actually, I don't know if I'd call it a spell. Well, now I call it a spell. This is my road opening oil that I have made, and I made this probably about. It's a little older. It's a little older, and I don't mind that it's a little older. Those of you that have oil that you might be concerned, like, oh, is my oil expired, or is the energy behind it expired, or whatever. Side note, as long as you're not ingesting it, right, then it doesn't really expire in that way, right? I don't ingest this. Let's be very clear. Road opening oil, most of the things in my witchcraft, my spell work, most of those things, I do not ingest. Because, one, the herbs that I use, if they come from a metaphysical store, generally the herbs from a metaphysical store are not going to be food safe, right? They're going to be a little bit more for like decorations and crafts and stuff. Obviously the craft, right? Burning, they're not really meant to be consumed, right? So there might still be some like debris in it from when it was being harvested that you don't want to intake. There might be extra chemicals on it that weren't rinsed off because they weren't intended to be eaten. For whatever reason, so I like to just make sure that whatever herbs that I'm going to ingest are food safe and also, obviously not poisonous. So, this jar is filled with both unsafe herbs to eat that are just in generally not safe, but, probably. No, that's my other one. Gosh, it has been so long since I made this one. Let's see, I got bay leaves, I got cinnamon, I got a wishing stone. If y'all don't know what a wishing stone is, that's literally just a rock. I don't think I have an extra one around here, but that's just a rock that has a straight line of quartz through it all the way around. It's hard to explain, and it's in here, so it's hard for you to see. But yes, it's like a palm stone, but then in the center, in the equator of that rock, there's a layer all the way through of like quartz or really any other mineral, but usually it's quartz. That's a wishing stone. a key, and the key actually has to open things. It has to have actually been a functional key for you to use in your road opening oil, or door opening, or whatever you want to call it. And then I got a bunch of other shit in there, a bunch of herbs that I burnt with spell stuff. I'm not going to remember everything. And then I put my little Futhark runes. You can see on there. There we go. Yeah. So that's what I have on there. And I have it bound with green thread because that's for more, bringing in abundance, prosperity, stuff like that. Oh, I have acorns in there. That's really good for prosperity, abundance, because of the potential growth that it was supposed to, grow into. In this case, there's acorns, so it's supposed to grow into a tree. So you have that potential energy is what I'm trying to get at. Excuse me. Yeah, so road opening oil, I like to use that in any manifestation spell. It only takes a couple drops. I did this on a new moon is when I made this particular oil, and then I had it charging in the sun, and I just like to keep it at my window. If you have done any sort of studies on manifestation spells or making spell ingredients for manifestation spells, you'll know that the sun is a big deal. You know that golden colors, honey, again, your sacral chakra, stuff like that. It's very important to take into account when you're trying to manifest things. So the reason why I like this in a jar is because the jar is clear and it's glass and it's tight, it's airtight, and I can put it in the window and I don't have to worry about it getting gross, really, because it's just oil. It's just the base oil in here is, I think, olive oil, honestly. Yeah, so it's just there's no water chilling in here. Any herbs that you do put in your oils, by the way, especially if you're going to end up ingesting that oil, do make sure there is no water. Do make sure that you use dried herbs, because if you use fresh herbs, then those will go rancid in your oil and it'll be disgusting and you might get sick. You probably will get sick. So make sure there's no water, and after a while, if you were going to have an oil that was originally going to be ingested, and then maybe it's kind of been a little too long, you can still use that oil, just don't ingest it. You can still use it and incorporate it in your other spellcraft, but just make sure you don't eat it. Anyway, I like to use my road opening oil. I like to have it bask in the sun and use that for my manifestation spells, or really any other spell that has blockages, right? Maybe it's a road opening, right? So apply that to anything that you might have a hurdle that you need to get over, that you need to break through, right? So maybe you have like a speech coming up and you're terrified of public speaking. That is so far from a manifestation spell in the sense that we think of a manifestation spell, but when combined with the intention of like maybe unblocking your throat chakra, that would be a good spell to use it on, because you're unblocking yourself from being successful in that speech, for example. Okay. The last jar spell that I'm not going to show you is a witch's bottle or witch's jar. And this jar is the same size as the other ones I just showed you. It is sealed in black wax. It has 9 cloves on top of it. I did 9 specifically just because that's with my deities. The Morrigan specifically. The number 9 is very protective, at least in my practice. I put broken glass in there. I put sand in there. I put red thread in there with a shit ton of knots. I put rosemary for warding. I put pee in there. I put my own blood in there. I put my hair in there. And so the purpose of a witch's bottle or a witch's jar is to, now traditionally it was to keep other witches, or just witches in general, away from your house. So traditionally you would take your witch's jar and you put like your rusty nails in it and all the things that I just listed, or maybe a combination of a couple of them. You take your witch's jar and you go out to the perimeter of your house or your land and you bury it. And that is one of the traditional ways that you would use a witch's jar. the way that I use a witch's jar, because obviously I live in an RV park and I don't have any place that, one, I can bury it, and two, I don't own the land that I'm on, I have it next to my bed. Now, my intention with it, obviously, is not to keep witches away, as I am a witch myself. And I also am surrounded, surprisingly, by a couple other witches at this RV park. My purpose is to keep, like, entities that I don't want around away, specifically in my dreams. Now, the reason why I made this particular witch's jar was actually because of a very specific entity that kept visiting me in my dreams. And as soon as I made that jar, that thing went away. So, and actually, I might do a whole video on that jar, just because there's kind of some lore with it. Like, it's opened, it's kind of like untwisted itself in the past couple years that I've made it, because I've had it for a minute. I've had it for a few years now, that jar. But yeah, anyway, there's an entity in there, so I might do a whole thing on that. I'm not sure yet. It might get weird, but we're here. So yeah, that's jars. I like jars just because if you're going to do a very long-term spell, kind of like the Tennessee one, you can seal it up and move it across country if you need to, and bam, your spell's still functioning. You just take off the lid and you're ready to go. I also like it because you can seal entities in said jars. You can use them as vessels, and you can seal off things with them. Jars in general, it doesn't have to be like a big jar or whatever. It can be one of those little tiny jars, right, that you see like on TikTok, where they're making like little tiny love bottles or spells or whatever. I don't know, I'm not on TikTok, but I just see it on like Facebook, because I'm old. Yeah, those like little spell bottles or whatever, those little glass spell jar things. Yeah, those work too. They're small, you can take them with you. Yeah, so those are jars. Let's talk about, I want to leave the animals, excuse me. I want to leave the animals for last, because I think that's the coolest part. That's also my favorite part. So we're going to leave those for last. But let's go to herbs now. My favorite herbs. Oh gosh. Okay. We're going to start here. We're going to start at ashwagandha root. Now, this is, you might have heard of ashwagandha if you went to like a supplement store. I have actually worked in a supplement store. It was awesome. Shout out to, don't know if I should say this, but whatever. We're here. Shout out to the Turnip Truck in Nashville. The main one, the west location. Yeah, the big one. Yeah, I worked there in the supplement section. So yeah, a lot of those herbs in the supplement section you absolutely can use for your witchcraft. And if you find tinctures, for example, or oils, all the better. Anyway, so if you ever went to a supplement store, you probably have heard of ashwagandha root. This particular ashwagandha root that I have in my hand is, like I said, not food grade really, and there's not really any way to like tell. I just got it from one of my favorite metaphysical stores back in Washington State. And so, yeah, that's ashwagandha root. I really like to use this for, so if you don't know, if you're not into supplements and stuff or herbs, it's a really good adaptogen. Now, I'm going to say terms like adaptogen that are a little bit more on the medical side. So do not take anything else of what I'm saying, because I have more herbs here to show you. I am not telling you to take these. Pretend every one of these things is not edible. I'm not telling you to take these, okay? But I just like to share what I know. So for legal reasons and for health reasons and for whatever the fuck, I'm just telling you this for educational purposes only, okay? Ashwagandha root is an amazing adaptogen that really helps with like stress and libido and all of that fun shit. Now, in your magical workings, obviously, it'd probably be good for some sex magic, or for potentially, it'd be a little bit more of a stretch for some manifestation magic. It would still be useful for that because it can be used for sex magic or any romance stuff. I like to use it for that. What else would it be good for? Cleansing the space, right? It's an adaptogen. It's about helping stress. Okay, so if it's in the mundane world, if its use is to help with stress, it's probably going to be really good at cleansing your space in the magic, right? The magic world, right? So I like to do it for that. Honestly, I really just, though, use it to increase the sexual vibe in my house. That's. And I know it sounds crazy, but sexual energy is just pure creation energy. It's just a battery. This is just helping the battery of creation energy. Okay, like don't think it's no. If you're a witch, then you're gonna have to get over some taboos of sex magic and all that fun shit. Yeah. So this is really great for that shit. And that's all I have to say about that. So the next herb that I really, really like is ginger root powder. This is another bag. You can't really see the label. Maybe. There you go. Ginger root powder. Strong connection to Mars. My phone's going off. I use this. I'll just read what it says on the pack. Connected to masculine energy, the planet Mars, and fire, ginger enjoys a legendary reputation for accelerating spellcraft. Oh boy. Yes, it does. And I don't have it with me right now, but ginger and cinnamon. Cinnamon's just in my pantry behind y'all. But cinnamon? Oh my god. That one I would say is a little bit more destructive if you don't know what you're doing. But ginger's really good. Ginger's good for speeding up spellcraft. I would say if you want something to happen, you don't need to get on the table. If you want something to happen really fast and you want it to not blow up in your face, use ginger. If you want something to happen really fast and you kind of don't care about the consequences, I've used cinnamon. Now, I know that there are some witch books and some texts that will... Ow. He's biting my hand. There's some... Ow. Stop it. There's some witch texts and sources that will say that cinnamon will speed up witchcraft, but does not necessarily have that such like explosive reaction. But I've just never really had that good and stable of experience with cinnamon. So I like to use ginger instead. And yeah, you can use it really in any spell, honestly, because it's just supposed to accelerate it. It does not take much, especially if you have fresh ginger, and that should honestly go for a lot of different herbs or other like once living ingredients. I'm mostly referring to plants here, but if you have like a dried herb if you have a dried herb, if it's really freshly dried, right, that intention's going to be a lot stronger. That spirit, that energetic connection to that plant ally is going to be a lot stronger. It's going to be a lot fresher, naturally. If you have herbs that you may have gotten from Walmart, and I'm not saying I have it, because shoot, like I said, I got cinnamon, I got basil, I can't keep basil alive to save my life. All sorts of stuff that I've gotten from Aldi and Walmart that work perfectly fine. I'm not saying they don't. But if you have the chance to get some fresh herbs and to dry them yourselves, there will be a difference, and you will see that difference. But again, if you're in a pinch, and I mean, shoot, it does not take much ginger to use, and I've had this bag, I think, for 5 years now of ginger. It takes literally a pinch, okay? That's what I will say about that. Oh, second thing, though, on that. The reason why this has lasted so long, and I think this is the other thing that maybe some newer witchcraft, new witches, new practitioners don't realize, a little goes a very long way, and also the more you use something, depending on how your own psychology is, the less sacred it becomes. And so what I mean by that is let's go to the very extreme example of that. Let's look at like blood, for example. The more you use blood in your spellcraft, the less it means something. So just make sure you really hold that up on a pedestal, or some herbs on a pedestal. Not every herb, but also you just don't want to be like, this one herb will fill in for every single, spell that you would ever need to do, right? Hot take. There's a meme that I saw or like a flow chart or something, an infographic that I saw that was like, rosemary will work for any spell, or, as a as a substitute for any spell ingredient or any herb that you need, or quartz, it will work for any spell that you could, like all these substitutions and saying that this herb or this rock is going to work for every single spell. Lord, no, it does not. No, it does not. In fact, that actually takes away the power behind that herb, right? And at least in my opinion, and I might get some shit from this, but if you use rosemary for every single spell, including all of your manifestations, including your warding spells, including your baneful magic, including whatever, and I honestly don't see how it could be used for baneful magic. I mean, maybe, every pretty rose has its thorns, so every herb has its two sides, but still, rosemary is kind of it's one of those really good ones, like good ones. But anyway, that's for another day. Moving on, so let's see here. Next herb that I have, not really an herb, but dried elderberries. Now, I've mentioned this before. Dried elderberries make wonderful offerings for the Fae. I cannot remember for the life of me why they enjoy elderberries so much. But they're also really good to help petition for protection. Elderberry in the mundane is really good for your immune system. It is incredibly high in antioxidants. If you're like getting sick or whatnot, or you're trying to prevent the flu or you're cold, take some of this and maybe some. No, we're not getting into that because I'm not. I'm not a supplements person anymore. Back to the magic side. Elderberry, really good for offerings of protection and just in general offerings. They're berries, right? So if you think about like abundance and prosperity, they are berries. I think that's enough said, right? Good for abundance. They're small and sweet, so the Fae like them. The birds like them. They're really good for your body. Yeah, they're just really good offerings. There's not really a spell that I would use this in. This is mostly just for offerings to entities. Elderberries. Mostly just offerings. Let's see here. All right. Yarrow. Big old jar of yarrow. I like this for so many reasons. In the mundane, it is really good for healing. All sorts of issues, skin ailments, your gut, a whole bunch of stuff. Again, I won't get into that because I don't want to be that guy that tells you to go take stuff because I'm not a doctor. Anyway, but yarrow is also really good in the magic realm for healing as well and for sending healing. Now, this is a wonderful offering for the goddess Freya specifically because it is folklorically, it has been told that yarrow was used, I want to say by her, someone connected to her. Yarrow was connected to her in some way, and it was used for the soldiers. I know mundane-wise, it was used as a poultice to stop the bleeding. Freya's a warrior spirit. I just like giving this as an offering to her. And another thing on that too, just kind of add a little extra tidbit. Catnip. Catnip is another great offering to Freya. But yarrow, I usually like to give this to her as an offering. Or just to send healing in anyone's way. I like to use yarrow for that. Yes. Okay, let's see here. Yes. My favorite herb. My absolutely favorite herb on the planet. And I'm not going to go over any of the other. I might cut this out. But also, those of you who might be in need, maybe I won't cut this out. I'm not going to go into any of the medicinal uses for this particular herb. I am only going to cover the magical uses of this herb, because it could get a lot of people in trouble. I might cut this out. I feel, you know what? No. People need to see this. Mugwort. Mugwort's a really good herb for cleansing the air. It is a really good herb for increasing the magic in the air. I like to burn it. It kind of does smell like pot. A little bit is not too strong, but do make sure, like, if you have a cat or something, lock them away, seal under the door with a towel, put a fan on in their room or whatever. Open your windows. It's really good for smoke cleansing your space. But yeah, mugwort's good for that. That's all I can honestly say about it. If you have any other desires, I can say this. If you are in a place where camping isn't allowed, yeah. Actually, I think I might cut that out. I'm going to cut that out. Cut this out. Okay. But yeah, mugwort's really good for cleansing your space and for increasing the magical energy into your space. But yeah, if you need to look up what mugwort does, otherwise, then I am not your person. But wink, wink. Do look that up. Do look it up. Just look it up. I won't cut out what I said. Who's going to be watching this podcast? Nobody. Yeah, look it up. Anyway, on to what I am doing. Magically away from politics. Okay. Let's go into like my favorite divination stuff. Let's go into that. Let's take a break from the scary herbs, right? Cause yeah, we're gonna Anyhoozle. Let me move this. I'm gonna show you guys one of my favorite divination styles ever. And let me move. I don't want you seeing him yet. He is very cool, but I don't want you seeing him yet. I'm going to show you one of my most favorite divination styles ever. And I actually, shout out to one of my old coworkers, and I told you when we met, I can't remember names for shit. I remember faces. But you made me this bag, you made this for me. This is amazing, and I still use it. But yeah, I had a whole coworker back in Washington when I worked at the grocery store Harbor Greens. I can say it now. Chad, you're an absolute asshole, the owner of that place. Yeah, you're a dick. You're an absolute dick. Anyhoozle. But she made me this amazing mushroom bag, and I've used it now to house my hair reading supplies. Now, when I say my hair reading supplies, I literally mean hair as in, like, the rabbit, right? The bunny, cute little rabbit thing jumping around everywhere. And I like to use a rabbit's pelt or a hair pelt because rabbits are looked upon as messengers, especially, actually, no, he's a squirrel. Ratatusker? I can't ever say his name right. He's a squirrel. Anyway, rabbits are also seen as messengers. They're just a little bit more skittish. Anyhoozle. So I like to use my rabbit pelt to cast my runes on. And I'm going to try to show you this as best as possible. I'm not going to do a reading because that would be insane to try to do that all in one podcast. We're already at 40 minutes, guys, and I have so many other things to show you. Okay? So many other things. Okay. But hopefully you can hear me because this microphone sucks. This is my rabbit pelt. Ain't he beautiful? I love him so much. He is so soft. I got him, like I said, back when I lived in Washington. There was a fairy day or something at Crescent Moon. If you've ever been to Tacoma, Washington, and you went to Crescent Moon, shout out to that store because that store is awesome. But they're having like a fae carnival or a fae festival or something, and there was this vendor who was selling rabbit pelts from this place that rehabilitated raptors, like, giant birds, like your vultures and your hawks and all your predatory birds, right? They rehabilitated them and had a sanctuary for them, but obviously they need to feed their birds. They're giant raptors, right? So to feed said birds, they raised these rabbits. And then after they would harvest the rabbits and give the bodies to the birds, right? Because the birds got to eat. They would then take the pelts and then they would sell them. So that's the story behind this guy. He has a very calm spirit. None of my spirits have names, really, except for a couple. This one is no exception, but he is still a very, very sweet rabbit, and I got him specifically because he has an ear. If this is really gross for you, I'm sorry. But he has an ear. And to me, I was like, oh my god, that is the most amazing. He actually has both ears. The most amazing, like, way to have some sort of messenger type divination thing going on. Like, you're literally, you're hearing, you're listening for your messages. This is a divination thing that I'm using. Anyway, I was excited. I thought the ears were cool. But yeah, so I have this pelt, and I'll have this laid out on a clean surface. And I usually will just kind of start with, calling in my ancestors, calling in my deities, spirit guides, whatever. And then I have an incantation. I won't say the incantation, but I have a certain incantation that I say every time I put my... Let me just show you. So I have my bison teeth. Of course, and I pull the empty one. I have my bison teeth. And on these bison teeth, the Elder Futhark runes are burned on them. Okay. And then, so I will cast those. I'll say my incantation, and then I'll cast the teeth. And then because my ancestry is just so varied, I will then cast my Ogham alphabet. Let me show you a couple of those. I'll then cast my Ogham alphabet. And these are just a couple examples. I have the entire Ogham alphabet in one bag, and actually each character of the alphabet is on the specific type of wood that it corresponds to. So I think that's kind of cool. And then I have my little bag of my bison teeth. And so what I will do is I'll have my rabbit pelt, and then I will cast out my bison teeth first, and then I will cast out my Ogham alphabet. Both of those I'll have the incantation that I say beforehand, and then after they're all cast, I will pick up all of the ones that don't have a symbol facing up. So I will only have on my rabbit pelt either the Ogham alphabet stick or the tooth that has the symbol facing upwards. Everything else I put away, and then from there I just do my reading. It's an incredibly intuitive reading. If you don't have a strong relationship with your first thoughts and with your intuition, I would highly recommend building that up first before you try to do this. This is obviously not a very conventional way, at least these days, of doing divination, because I am mixing a whole bunch of different methods. I have my Ogham alphabet, I have my Futhark runes, and I'm throwing it on a rabbit pelt. This came to me absolutely randomly. So yeah, this is definitely not your usual tarot reading. But I will say, if you do decide to go down this particular type of reading, even though it is a little bit more primitive, it's a lot more accurate, and you can get a lot more of in-depth answers with it, because the way that I will interpret a reading on my pelt is through the anatomy of maybe of that rabbit, right? So let me explain. If a rune lands around the throat area, I will assume that that is something that I need to work on saying, or that is something that needs to be said. If there is a rune that lands next to where, on the pelt that would correspond to where the liver was in the rabbit, then I would interpret that rune as something that I need to detox, or something that's currently being detoxed from my life, or something that needs to go away. If I had a rune land in the heart area, maybe that is something that I'm struggling with emotionally. Maybe that's something that's coming up that I'm going to struggle with emotionally. Not just struggle, okay, but just as to explain, for ease of explaining. maybe something landed next to its butt. And that's something that that's just crap that needs to get on out. Right? That's just, if I have something that lands lower next to where its tail would have been, that's stuff that's either on its way out of my life or that's stuff that needs to be on its way out of my life. You know what I mean? So that's what I mean. It's very intuitive. Look at how different teeth and how different sticks are interacting with each other, like if they're perpendicular with each other versus if maybe they're parallel with each other, stuff like that. Very intuitive. If y'all want a different tutorial on that, let me know in the comments below. But yes, that would be an entire video of how to teach you how to do this, because that's insane. But yes, so that was my favorite divination style ever. Let's go ahead and look at, let's see here, we're kind of halfway through. So I think I'm going to just kind of start picking up stuff at random, because this whole other half of my table is just random stuff that I think are neat that I want to show you. So, including animal stuff, okay? All right, so finally I'm going to give it to you. One of my favorite ever. Like this guy. This guy is 113 years old, roughly. His name is Noodles. He is a bush buck, and I got him from a convention. I think it's just like a curiosity convention or whatever. But yes, he was in a bit of rough shape when I found him. He had a plate. Let me just explain. This is Noodles. Everyone say hello to Noodles. He's 113 years old. I'm going to turn him on his side so you can see. I say he because, well, that's just what they told me, that it was rumored that it was originally a male bushbuck, but this was hunted way back, like, in the early 1900s. So those of you that are, like, born in the 2000s, this guy was hunted back in my century, okay? I was born in the 1900s. This guy was hunted in the 1900s. Any hoozle. Yeah, this guy, him and I from the same century. Sorry. Anyway, this is Noodles. He's a sweet pea. Look up a bushbuck if you've never seen a bushbuck in your life. They are so freaking cute. There's so many different kinds. He's obviously the smallest version of them, the ones that have like all the pretty dots and stuff that, stays on their fur even into adulthood. Yeah, these guys are beautiful. But when I first saw him at this curiosity convention, and when I first picked him up, it was such deep sorrow that I felt when I picked him up, and when I picked it up. And back here, well, you'll be able to see a little bit easier. You'll see these holes? These holes? There's 3 of them. I don't know if you can see the third one. There's a third one right here. 1, 2, 3. It goes all the way through. There was a very janky, probably the original plate, wooden plaque or whatever, that was on here that they used to mount, was still here on the back, okay? And the original screws were still screwed into literally his skull. Oh boy. So as soon as I picked him up, I felt great sorrow, and I knew that I had to take him home. And so I did. And I took out the screws and I took out the wood board on the back, and the immediate relief that I felt after that, it was like he had the worst headache, screaming, binding headache for over 100 years. Like, oh my God. Yeah, so he's now my bud. He is actually the backbone of my altar, and that he's like the guardian of my altar. I'll show you again. His horns are just so cool. I mean, and these are solid, right? I don't know if you can hear that on the mic. But these are solid. These are so cool. Anyway, I love him. Noodles, he's my favorite. One of the rare animal spirits that has a name. but he has a name, and I love him so. And such a sweet pea. Anyway, I love talking about him. He's so cute. I know morbid, but again, if you're watching my witchcraft podcast, you're morbid anyway. Anyway, let's go to another favorite horn of mine. This one does not have a name. This one I did get from the store Crescent Moon. Again, this was back. Remember in one of my old podcasts how I said that I fell for witchy capitalism hard when I first started? Yeah, so I went to the store Crescent Moon, and they have taken so much of my money over the years. Oh my god, so much money I have spent in that store. Anyway, this is one of the things I got from them. It is a, let's see, Noodles is a bushbuck. This is a springbuck horn. Look how freaking majestic that is. Look how freaking majestic that is. So, the reason why I picked this up, well, at first, when I first picked it up, was because it's cool. Again, I love collecting the weird things. I like collecting the macabre and the nasty. So when I saw how epic this freaking horn was, like, look at this, it's so cool. I'm making my whole table shake. It's also horns in general, especially if it comes from an animal where the males are the only ones that have the horns, or the males are the ones that have like the more prominent horns, right? There's sexual dimorphism going on. It's really nice because it brings in a specific masculine energy into your altar. So I specifically have this on my altar to bring in that more masculine kind of protection energy a bit. And also because it's cool. But, well, no, it's mostly for that masculine energy. Yeah. And, again, I'm a biology nerd, okay? Like, I lived my entire existence thinking I was going to be a biology teacher. So I was, naturally getting specimens to have in my classroom. So don't come at me. It's cool. Represents masculinity. Yeah, okay. Since we're on the roll of animal bones, let me just go ahead and show you the other ones. I have more in my house, but I wasn't going to show you all of them. I also have my staff, and I thought about showing you that today. I might. I don't know yet. I might still, but we'll see. But yes, this is a coyote skull that was one of the skulls my husband and I got when we went to an antique store at some cute little beach town in Washington State. Yes, again, Washington State. We just moved to Tennessee like 2 years ago, okay? And then like the economy went to shit. Well, it's been to shit. But even more to shit. Our livelihoods have kind of been a little like, and just in general, cost of living is insane. So not too much has gone down since we've been in Tennessee. We got this new RV since being in Tennessee because the other one was falling apart. Literally. So, anyway, that's okay. Progress does not matter how small, there's still progress. That's okay. Anyway, coyote skull. I love this guy. Coyotes are really shy. They're usually loners sometimes. At least most of the coyotes that I've seen. I mean, I've heard them yipping off in the fields together and stuff out in the middle of fucking nowhere. But at least the coyotes that I have seen are usually like alone and not really doing too much with others. I just like to have, like I said in previous podcasts, I just like to have like a really open space. I like my home, be it an apartment, be it a house, be it my RV. I like it to be a very open space. And, I showed you my coyote skull and mentioning opening spaces. Before I get to my other skull I want to show you, like I said, we're going to bounce around. But, oh God, and then I forgot all of my books. We're at 54 minutes. Y'all are spoiled today. Okay. This is, so I have mentioned now this wood burnt portal, I think in every goddamn podcast episode that I posted for y'all. So I'm going to finally show you. This was actually my first wood burning project that I have ever done. And, which I'm like, oh, hot damn. But it is basically as above, so below, I invoke thee. And it has the sun on top, as you can see. It has the Ouroboros around it, and then you flip it over, and it has the dark moon, and this says invoke thee, or I invoke thee. And it's all in Latin, and yeah. And then there's the eyeball in the center. This is something that I really like to use either passively when I just want to have my RV opened up a bit as far as the veil goes. So if I want the veil to be opened up a bit, I will just flip it this way, literally. I will just flip it this way to where the dark moon's on the top, and it just passively works. And that's because I have put a shit ton of intention into this piece of artwork and piece of, or tool, I guess. It's now a tool. Artwork, tool, whatever. I've put so much intention into this. Also, if you've ever wood burnt anything in your life before, you know how much your hand starts to cramp after a while. And making these goddamn skulls was literally sweat and tears. So the amount of pain and time and intention that went into this, charged it, I would say, quite a bit. So, yes. So when I want my space, my magical space, or just my space to be open in general, I'll flip it over. And when I want my space to be a little bit more on the conservative side and not as creepy for others, I will have it on the sunny side. Yes, literally. Any hoozle. So this is a wonderful thing for passively working on the veil, but if you want to actively work on the veil, I always just flip it on like this, like a little table. Obviously it's not in the air, but just to show you on the camera. And then I will put like my crystals, and I'll make like a crystal grid on it, or I'll put skulls on it, or I'll put whatever spell work on it that I'm trying to use to summon something. But this is a really good thing to summon things, because it's a portal. That was the whole point of it, was to be a portal. So this is my little homeward portal that I have, that I use a lot. Okay, let me show you my fox skull. Just a smaller version of my coyote skull. That's it. I just wanted to show you. Foxes, I don't work with foxes specifically as far as magical workings go. I say that. Sometimes I might work with the spirit of a fox if I need that extra, like, cunning, that extra cleverness, I might work with a fox. But granted, and I remember, if you've ever watched The Chaotic Witch Aunt, Frankie, on YouTube, I love you, by the way, she works with the fox spirit, and she went through this whole thing with her journey on working with the fox spirit and how it evolved and all that stuff. I personally haven't gotten all that deep with working with my fox spirit. Most of my animal spirits that I do have in my RV, or that I've collected over time, be it like Noodles, or be it, I have Ezekiel, which is my raven, or my crow over there. I have, all these animal spirits. It's mostly just to be a sanctuary for them. I find myself partially as I define myself partially as a death witch, not wish, death witch. And so when I find animal parts or come across animal spirits that I think that would benefit from being in more calm area, rather than, say, Noodles being sold to a house that wouldn't respect him enough to take off the wooden plaque. You know what I mean? Like, I like this to be kind of a sanctuary for their spirits to come and go from, rather than working with them for those animals. Noodles kind of just showed that he had a more protective nature, so that's why I have Noodles on my altar, specifically for protection. But otherwise, the rest of these guys just kind of come and go. I have their bones here as a way to show respect. I have them on my altar. If they want to help me out, they can. If they don't want to help me out, they don't have to. That's my relationships with my animal spirits for the most part. Is we just coexist. Yeah, there's no need to, use them or work with them or whatever. If you can, that if you want to, that's another thing. But for me personally, I just like to let them have an eternal space for rest. and I like to provide a sanctuary for their essence or their soul if they decide to stay here. So that's why they're here. Anyway, okay. Let's get through my grab bag of stuff. And I'm realizing that some of these things I don't need to show you. Like, y'all know what a mortar and pestle is? Fuck it, I'll show you because we're here. This is something that I love. I have like 3 mortars and pestles. One of which is technically my husband's because he's also a practitioner too. But all of them are different sizes. This is my biggest one. And I know it's not the biggest you could possibly have. But I just love it. It's big, it's heavy, it still has charcoal in it from the last spell I did. This is just a tool that I use literally every time I do spell work. If you are going to get into spell work that involves herbs, that involves anything that you have to grind down to a paste or to a powder or whatever, get yourself a heavy duty mortar and pestle if you can. This one, I think I got this one from TJ Maxx for less than $10. And it's really heavy, like really heavy. So, and it's amazing. And yeah, I love it. I love it. And you also, fun tip, only if it's a very heavy duty stone can you do this, and not something like synthetic or glass. God forbid you get a glass mortar and pestle and you do what I'm about to say. Don't do that. But if you are absolutely certain that you have a very strong stone in your hand, like for example, I have marble in my hand, or some form of thereof. I have a very heavy duty stone in my hand that I know it's not going to catch on fire. I'm saying that for a reason. If you don't have a safe place for your tiny cauldron, and if you have a tiny cauldron like me, fa-bam! Now I can keep it on my counter and I can burn shit and not burn my counter. And it's not going to fall over because it's really sturdy, right? So I just like to set my little cauldron in there, and then I will do my burning on my counter, and my counter's safe, and I'm not going to burn my hand. Win-win. Anyway, the other fun little thing. Cauldron. Get yourself a tiny cauldron. The big ones are amazing. Yes, I want a giant cauldron someday in my life, okay? But these things, you can just hang on a hook above your altar, and then, like, you can burn stuff in them, and then the smoke will just pour out onto your altar, and you will literally smoke cleanse your whole altar. And you can put any spell, whatever you want in this little tiny thing, and just, it's just so cute. They're so, oh my god. Listen, tangent. I want a giant cauldron, but because of this tiny cauldron and this combined, I have never felt like I was without a cauldron. You know what I mean? Like, I have all of my needs met as a witch with these 2 things. Yes. So, get yourself a mortar and pestle. Get yourself a tiny cauldron if you can. And if you like to burn things. On that side note, yes, I was going to show you this. Like I said, I'm surrounded by all my witch crap. I'm going to have to put everything back together as soon as I'm done with this podcast episode. I don't know. Also, I don't know how he has not just exploded with excitement, but Marilyn's asleep on the couch right now. So that's cool. Side note, if you're a super new witch and you do get yourself a tiny cauldron and you don't know how you're going to burn stuff consistently, fun tip, just get yourself some incense charcoal discs. Make sure you're in a really well ventilated area, because they do kind of stink at first when you light them, but afterwards you can just, they burn for like half an hour. You can do your whole spell in that. Take 1 disc, plop it in your little tiny cauldron, plop your tiny cauldron in your mortar and pestle that is totally heat safe, and then you're good to go to do your magical workings. There you go. Yes. Okay, what if you don't want to smoke cleanse, though? What if you don't want to smoke cleanse? I have mentioned a witch's bell. I don't think everyone knows what a witch's bell is. In my case, it's literally just a bell, and honestly, witches' bells are just bells. Sorry, that's probably really annoying. It's just a normal bell. That's literally it. I wanted to make it have a little bit more intention with it, so I wrapped color-coded yarn around the handle for the different chakras, because I went through a huge chakra thing when I was first starting. Yeah, because I did. Anyway. But yeah, you could just go around. I'm not going to ring that because it's really loud. But just go around your home, your wherever you live, wherever you're trying to cleanse, and just ring it. Because the concept is that it's such a high sound, it's such a high-pitched, high-frequency sound, that lower entities that carry heavier, more of what you would think as like sickening or darker energy or just like depressive vibes, just the bad energy, right? The high frequency, the theory is that gets it out of there, right? It also helps with stagnant energy. Entities that just don't like high frequency vibes are not going to want to be around, right? Because they literally do not align with that vibe. So yeah, I like my witch's bell. I don't use it as often for cleansing, but it is also really good way to both initiate and also end a ritual. So like, say you're getting ready to start a ritual, you have your whole circle made, you have all your candles lit, you have your offerings ready, say maybe you're with a coven, I don't know what you're doing. You're getting ready to start your ritual. Before you say your incantation, or around the time of you saying your incantation to start your ritual, you just ring the bell. Just ring the bell to initiate it, right? And then when you're done, ring the bell to end it. You could do that. Or just use it to cleanse. What is next? Okay. Let's see here. Let's get into some of my favorite rocks. And I certainly do not have all of my favorite rocks here in the slightest. I just have a few. So I already mentioned citrine. Let's look at this one. This is that big boy. This is my labradorite stone, and I also have copper wire wrapped around it. Yeah. I like to use this labradorite, and it's huge. I got this as a present from my father. I don't know how well you can see all the super pretty colors. Maybe you can sort of see. It's really hard to see in this lighting, and my camera's just absolute crap. But yes, it is labradorite. I love to use this stone specifically for my journeying. So, and like my different meditations and stuff. So I haven't done it for a second just because I've been kind of stressed lately and tired. But I like to take this and I will literally go and like sit cross-legged somewhere and I'll put it in my lap. Oh gosh, there's cat hair in front of the camera. I will literally take the rock and I'll put it in my lap and then I will meditate. And this rock, at least for me, is just very charged with just like very like opening, like third eye opening sort of energy. It's also very calming too. It's just like a weird dreamy stone. I don't know how to explain it. It's like when you're meditating with it, it's like you're in a one of those like weird float tanks. You know what I'm talking about? Like those weird, you go to a float tank place and it's just this giant pod that's dark and you get into it and it's like salt water or something and you don't realize that you're in water because it's like the same temperature as you and everything else. Yeah, if I had to describe a rock as a float tank, this rock is a float tank. Labradorite is a float tank for your brain. Yeah, so I like that. Another rock that just absolutely makes me giddy is calcinity. Calcinity. Probably saying that wrong. Gosh, it's so hard to see. But look, it's like this pastel. It's kind of the same. It's kind of the same color as my hair on the inside. It's just this really adorable baby pastel blue. And I have it in this geode. I have another piece somewhere else that one of my friends gave me. But it's just such a calming rock. And it's so pretty. And like, if I ever feel like I'm just having kind of an anxious moment, I'll just like pick this up and I'll just study the little crystals in it, or, it has some layering on the sides. It's just such a satisfying, cleansing rock. I just love calcinity. This blue, baby blue calcinity is just so, I don't know, mysterious to me. I love it. I love it. I love it. That's good if you just want to bring good vibes into your house. Or if you want to meditate and you're stressed. Or maybe you just are, I don't know, you're going through something. That's a good rock to have. It's just kind of like a warm hug, right? Labradorite is like a weird float tank for your brain. Blue calcinity is like a weird hug for your soul, honestly. Okay, next rock I want to mention is a hagstone. Now, this hagstone I personally did not find. One of my husband's old coworkers found this, but just the same, does not matter. And hagstones come in all sizes. A hagstone is literally just a rock that has had a hole eroded through it via water over time. So this rock, it could have been in a stream and it could have just been bombarded, in the same exact location for a long freaking time with water. And then, bam, now you just have, you have a hole through the rock. This can happen with like quartz crystals. I've seen it when I was in Washington on like the beaches. There'd be quartz with like holes that looked like they were drilled through, but they were just eroded away with water, right? So these are, there you go, I can see my eyeball. These are really good for, well, literally what I just did. One, the folklore behind it is it will open your third eye. It will like erase the veil if you look through it. That's the folklore. Now, something that one of my friends and I learned was maybe they don't necessarily mean like literally, like you're not going to look through it and suddenly be like, oh my God, the whole thing is, the veil has been lifted, and as long as I look through this very specific hole, I will see everything with my physical eye, right? Like my actual eyeball that I'm using to look through the hole. That's not really folklorically not what I think it was supposed to mean. Just from my own experience and just from my friend's experience, when she was messing with hagstones too, it's mostly just like, put it to your third eye with your intention of trying to meditate and see across the veil. I haven't had terribly too much, success using it in that way. I do use it on my altar with the intention of it to thin the veil, and I will say with that intention it's working just fine. But as far as like physically, physically putting it up to my eyeball and trying to look out and see stuff, I haven't really had that experience. Now, granted, again, like I've said in my other podcasts, I do see stuff anyway, so maybe I'm not the right eyeballs. Maybe I don't have the right eyes to look through this and tell you whether or not it actually works. But the other aspect to this, beyond thinning the veil, is to actually protect your home. Water has very healing properties to it, right? You have a rock that has been bombarded by water for years and years and years until you have a giant hole through it. Okay, so healing vibes, protection vibes. Maybe you need to clear out some nasty blockages. Maybe you find a hagstone and you made some road opening oil. Maybe make like a some sort of tool, magical tool, by anointing this with your road opening oil. I don't know. You make something out of it. Protection, opening up the veil. That's what a hagstone basically does. I like to keep it on my altar with the intention to thin the veil, and it seems to be doing just fine. So there's that. Last rock that I want to show you for today is hematite. See if you can. Nice and bubbly on one side. Looking neat. Hematite is an igneous rock. It's a type of igneous rock, a volcanic rock, if you do not remember your biology days. And it is magically, the intention is for it to hone in all of the crap, the clutter going in your mind when you're trying to do some sort of psychic thing. So it's like it's a focusing tool in a way. The idea is like, okay, so if you're trying to meditate and you're trying to focus on this one thing, but your brain keeps being scattered, excuse me. The idea is that this will erase that brain clutter and help you meditate more or meditate better. I don't use it for that intention. Maybe you'll notice this about a few things. Just like with my herbs, I don't use it all the time as the way everyone else uses it. Hematite is good for focusing. I have noticed that. But the way I use it is to just hone in my intentions on any given spell. I'm not trying to hone in myself. I'm not trying to hone in my thoughts, because I have personally not have had success in that aspect using hematite. I keep holding it and forgetting you can't see it. I haven't had that much success with that aspect, like trying to hone in your thoughts with this rock, but I have had success trying to focus and streamline a intention with a spell with this. So like what I would do is, say I was doing a spell that would require, say, like writing my intention on a bay leaf or something. What I would do is I would write my intention on the bay leaf, and then I would set this on top of the bay leaf. Or I would burn the bay leaf, and then I would put its ashes over this rock. Or I would make a crystal grid, and then this would just be part of the crystal grid. You know what I mean? Like, that's how I use it, is for that. Is to hone in the intention. Yeah. So not using it specifically by itself, but using it in combination with other things is usually really good. Okay, this is a really long video, but that's okay. So we're gonna see here. I don't want to go over my favorite books. We might do favorite books later. No, we'll go through it. We'll be fast. Okay. Aromagees. Have y'all been to Aromagees in Nashville? Close to Nashville? Aromagees Botanica is one of... I love that store. It is like if you took Crescent Moon from Tacoma, this like super... I wouldn't say Crescent Moon is superficial in any way, but it is a lot more like you walked into Hogwarts rather than an actual like magic, like an actual practitioner store where they take it seriously. Crescent Moon kind of puts a little bit more of a fun, sparkly twist on it, whereas Aromagees is very much that authentic experience. You know, like if you want to get your witchcraft done, if you want to get shit happening, go to Aromagees. If you want more of kind of like that, you know, fantastical, what is magic happening sort of thing, yeah, Crescent Moon. That's a whole tangent for people who never probably lived in those areas at all. Anyway, but I just wanted to mention the 2 different oils that I've gotten from them, because they do tell you the ingredients on the back. So Crown of Achievement is one of the oils that I've gotten from Aromagees, and I really love that. It's here. Crown of Achievement is used for success in career, business, and the performing arts. Especially good for singers, songwriters, and other performers trying to break into the business. Also used in any spell or working that deals with success, goals, and getting ahead of the game. Contains John the Conqueror root, pyrite, 5-finger grass, bay leaf, peony, and the essential oils of wintergreen, bergamot, frankincense, and other herbs and essential oils in the base of fractionated coconut oil. Probably didn't need to read that last part. But those, like John the Conqueror root, 5-finger grass, bergamot, that sort of stuff, those are very folk practice type, root worky type ingredients. Pyrite is just a type of mineral. Fool's gold, if you ever heard of fool's gold, that's what pyrite is. I have a piece I could show you, but I'd have to go get it. But yeah, that's what's in here. You just use this, add a couple drops like you would with like the road opening oil. Remember when I mentioned that? Just a couple drops in your spell. It just adds some oomph to it. Just some oomph. Dragon's Blood. That's another one that I got from Aromagees. Dragon's Blood, you can actually also find it in an incense form, be it in incense sticks, or sometimes you can find it in a resin where you burn on like the little charcoal pucks that I showed you earlier. or you can get it in an oil. And just like ginger root powder, where it just really speeds up your spell work and just adds that like extra oomph to it, Dragon's Blood does that as well. You can also use it for cleansing and banishing negativity. I use it for both, actually. I also use it for different offerings as well, because I know that Freya, as well as the Morrigan, as three sisters, at least the way that I look at her, they both like Dragon's Blood as an offering. So I use that as well. Dragon's Blood is just wonderful. I have it on a herb bundle that I burn. It's spread all over this herb bundle that I burn for cleansing. I've used it for manifestation spells. I've used it for cleansing spells. I've used it for baneful work. Like, Dragon's Blood. Get yourself some Dragon's Blood. It's good shit. Okay. We are at an hour and 20 minutes. I had a few other things I wanted to show you guys. Oh gosh. Okay. If I had to choose any of these books to make you go out and buy one, if I had to choose one book from the stack of books, because you guys don't realize we're at an hour 20 minutes and I have a stack of like 7 books that I wanted to talk to you about. If I had to choose any one of these books, okay. Okay. Yes, I got one. Okay. Enjoy my armpit. Oh, alright. This one I am still working through. This is also not going to be a book review, but like I said, this is kind of like a grab bag of my favorite shit in this video. So, here we are. The Temple of Shamanic Witchcraft by Christopher Penczak? Yeah. Certainly not his first book. I don't believe so. I think it's like his second book. Not his last book. I think this is honestly the only book that I own that's his. But this book, if you are trying desperately to get into some form of a shamanic practice or a journeying practice and you don't know where to start, this book is wonderful. It is a little bit more on the pricier side. It's $28.99 or $27.99 as of when I went and bought this. I'm sure you can get it on Amazon. They just put it up here so you can see it a little easier. But no, this book it's basically a workbook, and he goes into like facing your shadows. He looks at your symbology. He looks at sacred spaces, and I'm just looking at the very beginning of the book, and that's what I'm telling you. But no, like if you want to get into journeying, if you want to get into specifically hedge witchcraft, that book, and actually, because fuck it, we have time, why not? That book, and let me grab this one. Sorry, I don't want to knock stuff onto the floor. If you want to get into hedge witchcraft, I would do this book, The Temple of Shamanic Witchcraft, and I would read this book, Hedge Druidry. Now, this is going to give you more of the Celtic context to hedge witchcraft. It's not going to be like the super big, in-depth, advanced book, right? Like if you're wanting something super advanced, this is not advanced. Honestly, there's not too many books out there that are incredibly advanced when it comes to journeying and whatnot. You just kind of have to get all of the beginner books and then compile all the information that you read from all of those beginner books and find something in there that sounds right to you. That's really all it's hard. It's really hard to get into soul journeys and to hedge witchcraft and stuff when a lot of the text out there is either not on hedge druidry or not on hedgecraft specifically, or if it is, it's very superficial and very beginner. And it's hard to do it too because, you know, going on a soul journey or going on a shamanic journey is so specific to the individual that it's hard to even try to make an advanced book on that topic. Yeah, so if you want to get into that, Hedge Druidry by Joanne Vanderhoven. Yeah. This is really good. Plus this one. these two together, I would say you get a fairly good start on doing it yourself. The Temple of Shamanic Witchcraft has a ton of exercises throughout the entire book that are extremely accessible to even the amazingly ADHD mind that I have myself. So, yes, absolutely worth it. Check out those two. Okay, it's an hour and 24 minutes. I think I have shown you most of the things on my table. Yeah, so this was kind of trying to be, I guess, let's get into some housekeeping to try to close off this podcast episode. So I was gone for about a week. That's not going to be a habit of mine, hopefully, but just to let y'all know, I am just starting on this podcast thing, and I am not used to sharing any of my witchcraft stuff at all, and I'm not used to being on camera, and you probably can see, that and how obvious that is. But my goal is, like I said, I just really want to share my stuff on here, and I really want to create like a channel and a community where this isn't necessarily about the witchy aesthetic. Like, this channel is chaotic on purpose, right? Like, you're not coming onto this channel to learn how to make a really cool looking witch talk channel or how to make a really cool looking Tumblr blog. This is real witchcraft, and this is not that the other stuff isn't, not that all of the other aesthetic stuff and all the cool stuff is not. But, like, sometimes it's messy. Sometimes you have bones. Sometimes you have blood. Sometimes, you have a nasty jar that's been chilling on your shelf for about 3 years, and you're never going to get rid of it because you feel like your whole existence that you've been trying so hard to manifest will crumble. But, like, it's just messy. And, a lot of these tools I've either bought or I have found or were given to me, and you learn to just flow with the energy. And, if you're a folk practitioner, it's very different than high magic, ceremonial high magic, which is very deeply, connected to like those super long ceremonies, super long rituals that are extremely extravagant. Folk magic is dirty. Folk magic has bones. Folk magic has bodily fluids, and is not always shiny, and doesn't always look like what it does on TikTok. So this channel, I really didn't want to give that vibe of that I'm trying to look like those witchy people on TikTok, because I'm not. I am just your everyday witch that does weird shit and just picks up stuff as she goes. So, yeah. Anyhoozle. So, as far as future podcasts go, I do want to do about a podcast a week. For right now, 2 podcasts aren't that big of a deal, but I can't promise 2 podcasts a week. So, if we're at 1 podcast a week, we'll do that. At least 1 a week. Last week, my husband was home, and that plane is really loud, I'm sorry. Last week, my husband was home, because he had kind of a funky schedule, and then Tuesday, he also had a funky schedule with his work. So you can imagine trying to have me record a podcast while my husband is usually sitting in this chair right here, playing his video games on the TV right there. Me trying to record right here. Like, no. That's not happening. So, yeah, you can definitely expect from here on out 1 podcast a week. I'm sorry I missed last week. Shoot me. But anyhoozle, yeah, it's been an hour and a half. It's 10:15, and it's going to be 80 some odd degrees and nasty, so I want my AC on. So I will leave you at that. Yes, if you have any questions about anything that I showed you, if you have any questions about anything that I've hinted to that you want to see that I haven't shown you, leave those questions down below. Again, I am going to put Samaritan's Purse into the description, so because of all the flooding and absolute atrocities that have been going on in the Southeast, please donate if you can. If you can't, please share that link. and we'll get through this together. But yes, please be safe out there. Drink your water. God, I'm hoping all the best for you guys where you have lost all your homes and stuff. It has been absolutely tragic. Yeah, so take care of yourselves. Be safe. And I will see you next week. Bye!